Welcome to the After Sunday podcast at First Baptist Cocoa, where we are a multi-generational family on mission. I'm Pastor Dean Williamson, senior pastor here at First Baptist Church of Cocoa. This podcast is usually hosted by Pastor Gaston, our youth and administration pastor, but he is currently in the hospital recovering from cardiac arrest he experienced this past weekend. We are incredibly grateful to God for bringing him through, answering our prayers for his health. Please continue to pray for the Kinney family as he recovers. In Pastor Gaston's absence, I'm going to play host, and I'm joined today by Pastor Rick Cantrell, our young adult pastor here at First Baptist and a retired U.S. Army chaplain. Last time we were together, we talked about divorce and what the Bible has to say about it. Our topic today is Pastor Rick's experience as a military chaplain. Pastor Rick, I've served as a pastor, but I've never served in the military. I'd like you to share with us about the unique role of being a chaplain in the U.S. military. But before we talk about your military career, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and how you got involved here at First Baptist?
Thanks for having me today, Pastor Dean. I really appreciate it. A little bit about myself. So married to my wife, Robin. We're going on 40 years, 39 years, 40 years this next June.
Congratulations.
So looking forward to that. We got 2 daughters, I have 2 grandchildren. And retired, so life is good. So I was in the pastorate for about 13 years before I decided to go into the military chaplaincy, the Army chaplaincy specifically. Served 27 years, and now I'm here with First Baptist Church of Cocoa, just loving the retired life and contributing in ways that I possibly can to help bring about Jesus Christ and his mission in this community and in the world.
Well, I know you're already making an incredible difference with our young adults. Those 18 to 30-year-olds are being reached at First Baptist, and God is moving. And so thank you for shepherding them.
My pleasure.
Well, what sparked your desire to be a military chaplain in the first place?
So I was pastoring little small churches in Central Florida, and I had 2 pastorates, and things were going well, but it was kind of... I just felt like the Lord had something different for me. And my brother was a Marine at the time, and he just graduated from the Naval Academy, and he was flying helicopters. And he was just saying, you might be interested in, being a chaplain in the military. Specifically, he recommended the Army. Although he was in the Marine Corps, he said the Army might be a good fit for me.
So he didn't think you could make it in the Marines?
Probably, yes, absolutely. He just said that, well, I think he was thinking the Army would be a better career path because it's so much bigger. And the Marines is so small, and it's a little hard to stay in the 20 years. So he was thinking long term. But it was a good fit. It was a good fit. And so I started investigating that and seeing, if maybe God's going to call me to that. I think that's the key. You have to be really called to serve in the military, because really you're serving men and women who are willing to pay the ultimate price, but you're also serving their family members who have a lot of needs. So, and then you're going to be, shipped to different places overseas, OCONUS. And so you have to be ready to make that commitment. So when I had that time to investigate that, I said, I'm ready. I'm ready for that change. Robin, my wife, was all for it. And so we decided to, take a leap of faith and go join the military and see the world.
I hear that they don't just let anybody do that. So what are the educational and ministry experience requirements to be accessioned onto active duty military?
Yeah, a lot of people don't really know this, but the military doesn't take just anybody. So really, to be sort of eligible, you have to really have you have to have your Master's of Divinity, if your ecclesiastical endorsement, which is your denomination, if it requires that for you to be ordained. So a Master's of Divinity, Master's of Theology, some denominations require Masters of Counseling. Depending on what that is, you have to have that. And then you have to have 2 years of full-time ministry, proven ministry, before you can even be looked at as a candidate. And then once you apply for the paperwork and then you're an approved candidate, you got to be ordained, you got to have your education. Then a colonel chaplain will sit down and interview you. Typically, it's about a 3-hour interview where they ask you every question in the book, and they're looking to see if you what your preaching background is. They want to look at sermons. They want to look at your educational background. They also want to really entertain the call. Are you called to be a military chaplain? Because it is unique, and there's some challenges there that you have to be willing to fulfill if you're going to go there.
So they really grilled you.
They do. I mean, and I think, and it took me about a year to really that process. So I was a candidate, and then I went through the candidacy process, and it was interviewed. It takes about a year to be a session, which means you come on active duty in the military. For me, it was the Army.
Awesome. Well, thanks for clarifying some of the military lingo, because I'm uninitiated in this way. What are some differences between military chaplaincy and civilian or parachurch ministry?
Well, there's a lot of similarities. Really, if you're a gifted minister in a church or in a parachurch ministry, that translates into the military. But the contexts are quite different. So in the military, once you're endorsed, the chaplaincy says, okay, for me, I was IMF, International Ministerial Fellowship. Whatever they said that I need to do that constitutes ministry, I really march to their orders. So the military just says, okay, you got a command group size that says, all right, on the Army side, you need to march to those orders. On the ministry side, it's my endorser that sets the trend for that. So for me, if I am ministering to a group and it's my endorser and I'm independent, I can do exactly what my endorser says. So just like if I were in a regular church. So if I have a church service, I do exactly the same things I would do in a church. I would provide counseling, I would preach, and I would teach, and I wouldn't deviate from my doctrine or my education or my personal experiences in ministry. They go hand in hand. On the military side, on the other side, is this. You're trained to minister to military personnel in a context that you have to use some wisdom on when to share that. And like prayers, for instance, a lot of people say, oh, well, we water down prayers in the military. Well, if I'm preaching in a worship service, then I'm going to pray just like I pray in the church. But if I'm preaching or praying in a required command environment where people of different faiths come together, I have to really look at that and use wording that is inclusive in nature, not so that I wouldn't offend folks coming from different faith backgrounds because they're required to be there. So there's some wisdom there. But a lot of people confuse that as, oh, chaplains, they can't really preach what they're been taught, or they have to water down their theology. But I totally disagree with that. You just have to use wisdom in the context that you're in.
What was it like working with chaplains? Were there chaplains of other faiths, like other religions?
Yes, that's a good question. So yes, you have to really get used to that. And so a lot of times you don't really talk with them about your theology, but when I was at West Point, every Friday we met the garrison commander, a Jewish rabbi. I was a Protestant chaplain and a Catholic priest. And we met every Friday and we talked theology. It was amazing. Now, that was rare. In most cases, you don't get a chance to talk about that, but you need to know about their background so that you can help soldiers go to them. So there's an interdependency with chaplains in the military. So if I'm a chaplain and I have soldiers that have this faith background, I want to direct them to that chaplain, and vice versa. Catholics will send Protestants to me, and I'll send Catholics to the Catholic priest. So we work together quite a bit.
So you didn't feel like the interdenominational or interfaith type things that you had to do took away from your ministry?
Not at all. Not at all. And I think there's a healthy respect there. If a person is not sure of their background and they're coming to you and they're saying, what do you think? And what do you believe? And that's a ground that I will spend more time investigating and sharing the gospel with them, and then also teaching them what I know of the Bible. And so I think that's where the missionary side comes to play in the military. And in fact, there's a lot of opportunities for that. I found myself all the time sharing the gospel with folks that really didn't understand it.
Wow, that's awesome.
It is a
great opportunity.
Yeah.
What are some of the benefits available to military chaplains while on active duty or once retired?
A lot of benefits. So if you want to see the world, right, you just don't know where you're going to go. So my first assignment, I went out to Fort Hood, Texas. And then my second assignment, I went all the way to South Korea. So third assignment to Iraq. So right into combat. So really, you just really don't know where you're going to go. And so if you ask for assignments that are challenging, they're going to send you to challenging places. And I try to do that. So the best benefit is if you want to see the world and experience different cultures and be in different countries and just really explore the world, the military is a great option. That's, I think, one of the best benefits. The other one is you have tons of educational opportunities. So I was able to get 3 degrees while I was in the military that they paid for. So if you want extra education, you don't have the extra funds to do that, the military is a great place to serve and to expand your education and really grow in that realm. Other benefits too, I think it's good to work with other chaplains with different faith backgrounds just so you can learn the world. And I think it really makes you a better evangelist and how to communicate to them because you know their verbiage, you know their doctrine, you know where they're coming from. So if you know where someone's coming from and maybe they don't know Jesus Christ, it helps you kind of share that more effectively.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Oh, well, what are some of the challenges that military chaplains and their families encounter while serving on active duty?
A lot of challenges. So it's not this picture perfect world. I mean, so on the average, for me, my first 10 years, I moved every year and a half. So you move frequently. And it means sometimes at a drop of a hat, you're not supposed to be appointed or assigned a new unit. Then they go, no, we need you in this unit ASAP. So you'll come down on orders and you got to get your household ready and you got to be out there in 3 months. So you quickly got to move and you can't, stay in one place too long if you like it. That's the thing. So in the military, they say, if you don't like the place, don't worry, you're going to move soon. So if you like the place, don't worry too, you're going to move soon too. So don't get too happy and don't get too sad in assignment because you're going to move. And so I think a lot of folks do not like that, particularly your spouses and children. So I remember when I was at West Point, it was a great assignment. That was my dream assignment. Got there, and then I came down on orders to go to a school that I didn't think I was going to get. And so instead of really taking my family, I left my daughter there for her senior year in high school. So you have to make hard decisions like that. And so those are some of the challenges. And other things, you go to combat. So you see, service members die. And as a chaplain, there's no better way to serve people than to be with them and really in their dying moments and then to come back and tell the family members that you were with them. So I remember when I was in Iraq, we had several soldiers that passed. I was with them in their dying moments. And then I came back, we redeployed to Fort Carson, and then I'm talking to the parents, and they're saying, tell me about my son. What did he say? What did he do? Those are precious ministry moments that you'll never forget. So you're just with men and women in combat in probably the darkest time, and then you're with them in the celebratory times when they're getting promoted, when they're getting married, when they have children, and when they graduate from college and things like that. So you're seen in the unit as a different person. You're seen as a chaplain. First of all, you're a staff officer to the commander. So every commander in the military, depending on their rank and what level, company grade is a captain, and then brigade is a major, and then up to lieutenant colonel and a colonel with a full division. But you have the commander has a lawyer, a doctor, and a chaplain, and you're on that special staff. So the commander really utilizes the lawyer for legal. That's very important. The doctor is very important, and then the chaplain becomes a confidant, a spiritual advisor, and I think that's the best role I had in the military, was helping commanders make wise decisions based on what God might be saying in the moment. So you become that advisor to that commander, which is worth its weight in gold to them, if they'll allow it. Some commanders didn't allow me to be that, but most of them did. They allowed me to be a spiritual advisor to them and a confidant so that they can share with me. The other thing as a chaplain that's unique is that it's sacred for chaplains to be confidential. So if you are with someone and you share that information with someone, you actually lose your credibility in the unit because it spreads like wildfire. So if you're a confidential chaplain, you're effective, proactive chaplain, then you're going to get plenty of business.
Mm. And that's what we want to have here at First Baptist, is that people trust us.
Yes.
That when you share something with one of the pastors at First Baptist, it's not going to go anywhere but to God.
Yes, and that's important.
Absolutely,
very important.
And so we have that level as well. So that's a good thing. Where that similar to to the ministry, civilian ministry as well, because people don't trust you unless you hold those things in confidence.
I take that to heart so much that I remember I had an incident where it was a sticky situation where I had a church member that his wife had an affair with another person I was counseling, but I couldn't tell that church member, and that church member got very upset with me. But I told him that, it was confidential. I could not, I took that oath. And so you have to be willing to take those hits for that, but you got to keep it confidential.
Absolutely. Well, we're not too far from Patrick Air Force Base or Space Force Base. So as a church, we're excited that we have a new couple that just joined our church that's on base there. But what can we do as a church to support military servicemen and women?
I think this might be misunderstood. A lot of churches misunderstand how to reach out to military families. I think they see them sometimes as a mission. Military personnel are very resilient and independent and proactive, and they want to contribute to whatever organization they're in. And they don't want to be seen as a mission, and they don't really want to receive a handout. They just really want to be a part of the church, and they want to be an integral part of the church, but they just want to be included. Now when, say, a service member deploys and they're away from their wife or husband, whatever the case may be, for 6 months or more, then they do need more support. They need emotional support, spiritual support, and all of that. That comes into handy. But it's knowing how much to help and how much not to help. I think most military families just want to belong. They want to be a part of a church just like anybody else, and they want to be seen just like anybody else. And I think if churches will reach out to them, and they don't necessarily have to honor them in their service, it just, maybe say, we appreciate that your mission is different, and how can we help you and be available to them? But they just really want to be included.
Well, that brings up a question I've had is, when you find out that somebody is served in the military and you say, thank you for serving, it seems like some of military members are very, very honored, especially those who fought in places like Vietnam, where they didn't get respect and honor when they were going through that. But then other ones, they seem like they're like kind of, I don't want any of that. So what is it like when people want to honor you as a military service member?
I really don't like it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't see myself as any different or special. I don't see myself as unique compared to others. I've had unique experiences, no doubt. I mean, not too many people can be in a combat zone with folks in the military setting, but those are sacred moments, and I think that really resides with military personnel. It can't be replicated in the civilian world. So when I'm in the civilian world, I'm no different than anybody else. I'm not special. I just want to be seen as someone that's included, and I think that's what happens is the military. The camaraderie is so strong, and when they leave the military, they lose their identity. But they need to come back to the community, like the church, and be a part of a community again. That's what they need. They don't need special recognition, although I think some like that. I don't look for that. I think true heroes don't look for that. I think they really want to be a part organically of a community, and they want to be participants, and they want to contribute as much as possible.
So it'd be appropriate for us to maybe quickly acknowledge thank you for serving,
absolutely.
But not to make a
not
big
to make a big deal out of it.
Okay,
no?
I can see
because
that.
you got the veterans groups, you got the VFW, you got all those. They do that, and those guys really, to be honest with you, that's their identity, and they haven't lost it. So for me, my identity was with Christ before I joined the military. Military wasn't my identity. Christ has always been my identity. So for me to go right back into the church is very natural. So I don't really need an extension of those organizations to feel like I belong, because in the church is where I belong because I'm a Christian.
Absolutely. And if anything other than Christ becomes your identity, then you can lose that identity and become very lost very quickly.
Yes.
But if you have Christ as your identity, he is a firm foundation, a rock that you can build your life on.
Yes.
Well, is there anything else from your experience that as a chaplain that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I would just say it was a privilege to serve in the military. It really was. I mean, I had the privilege of really working with and serving great leaders in our country, general officers and colonels and commanders, and then too, down to the private. So in all of my assignments, I felt like God was really working in that assignment. So I had a TRADOC assignment at Fort Jackson, where every Sunday, and I remember this was right after 9/11, not too much after 9/11, every Sunday I would say, who has a testimony? And then in our chapel service, people would run up, I mean, like 50 of them, to give a testimony for the Lord.
Wow.
And every Sunday was just magnificent and then every Sunday people got saved and they shared their testimonies. And I remember this one testimony where this guy said he was in the one tower and his uncle was in the second tower and he saw it go down. And then one soldier gave a testimony, it was a female soldier, and she said that she was talking to her parents when they were in the plane that went down. And so you get testimonies like that, and they're serving our country. So really, to minister to the type of people that are willing to give their lives was a privilege. And when they call me chaplain and they say, "I love you, you're my chaplain," that is the most awesome compliment you can get. And that's what you're looking for. You want to be their chaplain. You want to represent God. So when a soldier sees a chaplain, they see that cross, wherever you are, they know that God is with them. There's a sense that God is with them when the chaplain is present in the vicinity that they are in, they feel like God is watching them. And so I represented that, and it was a privilege to be a part of that. So I'll never forget it. I got tons of stories, but for another day. But that's in a nutshell. You can't replicate what I had for 27 years. It was just a great privilege and honor.
Well, one thing I really admire about you, Pastor Rick, is that even after you've retired full career, you could just do whatever you want. And you're choosing to take a lot of your time and invest in the young adults here at First Baptist and serve as a pastor here. And so I just want to thank you so much and recognize that you are, even though you've retired from the U.S. military, you are a soldier in the Lord's army, and that is a testimony to all of us. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the After Sunday podcast. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you really enjoy this podcast, please hit the share button so that other people can hear it. If you have any topics you'd like us to talk about, please comment on this video. Until next time, we pray that the Lord would give you a spirit of wisdom and of revelation in the knowledge of Him.